to the Queens of the DMV podcast, Real Talk in Real Estate. My name is Ariel, and I'm here with my co-host, Cher
Arnita.
Castillo. Follow us on IG at Queens of the DMV and YouTube. Listen to our podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Look out for us every Thursday via YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We usually drop our new episodes at around 5 o'clock. Today, we have with us our guest for this evening, Rhianna Green. And our topic for this evening is how to acquire income producing real estate, profit, and management without going insane. So we're going to jump right into it. Welcome, Rhianna.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for having me today. It is a pleasure to meet all of you.
Yes.
Likewise, definitely.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what your company does. And then also don't forget to you share your social media as well.
Okay. So I'm Rhianna Green. I'm one of the co-founders of Hilltop Ventures in Washington, D.C. And we specialize in short-term, mid-term, and long-term rentals, actually in Washington, D.C. and Arkansas. My background is actually in healthcare, but I love real estate, and I've been diving more and more to it over the last 5 years. The other owner of Hilltop Ventures is my fiance. And so we are a Black-owned company here. And our bread and butter is Airbnb, Vrbo, and short-term rentals.
So. Wonderful. When did you start buying income-producing properties and why?
My first income-producing property, which I didn't really think about, was in 2018. I was in Charlotte and I was trying to house hack because I wanted a house. I didn't want to pay the mortgage. And I was like, well, I think I can, manage having roommates if they're paying the bills. And so I started with that. And then I moved to DC abruptly. And so working with Cher, actually, I told her I wanted to have an income producing property. So I found a single family home with a basement. And I started doing Airbnb out of my basement, which was actually going really well. Picked up traction within 16 hours of listing.
Wow.
And the pandemic hit, but ironically, it didn't slow down the amount of people for too long. The pandemic hit in March, so I did start getting a bit of cancellations, but by May and June, they picked back up. And then when we started our company, my fiance started doing his house, which was a 3-bedroom house, and now we have up to a 5-bedroom house.
Wonderful.
So that's kind of...
So you put a term out there. We might have some new viewers who are, new to the investment industry and might not quite understand the term. Can you explain a little bit what house hacking?
Yeah, so house hacking is pretty much when you have a home and instead of doing a short-term rental where you have a lease per bedroom or a portion of the house, if it's a basement, you're just renting 1 bedroom at a time for a long-term period. And with that, you designate the rent, usually to cover your mortgages and your utilities so that you're paying a lower portion of your bills, none at all, or making a profit, depending on how much you owe on your home.
Wonderful. I feel like house hacking has been going on for a long time. We just find different names for it.
I was about to say that. So again, so the house hacking is that they're staying there for a long period of time, not a short period, correct?
Correct. So it's definitely more than 30 days.
Okay. But is there a max?
No, you can renew the lease. Oh, wow. I've had people stay for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
But it's just like leasing an apartment. You're just leasing a room.
Yeah, the key variable is just lowering your bills so that you can actually afford more of the other stuff that you want to do versus being house poor. So like if I have a 5-bedroom house and I rent out a room for $1,000 a month, you're basically cutting down your expenses on what you would pay for an entire house that you're not using.
Wow.
So, I'm all for it. And I feel like, this Airbnb thing that you're doing is also a form of house hacking.
Correct. It's a lot more profitable than house hacking, but it also comes with a lot more responsibility when you do short-term rentals. So anything less than 30 days, usually with Airbnb, it's really short, max 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing with it, you list the property, the guests come, they stay, they leave. The issue with Airbnb is it's front loaded on expenses. So you need to make sure your property is appealing. Then you need to have the time to talk to the guests. And then either you're going to clean it or hire a cleaning staff to turn it over so that it could be ready for the next person, and have enough material so that, let's say someone damages a comforter or something like that, that you have it available for a same day check-in. So that's the difference in house hacking, which you have the same person for long periods versus having someone with Airbnb.
Right. I feel like you answered our question that we were going to ask next, and maybe you might have a little bit more to add to this, but what would you say would be some guidance for people who are trying to get into Airbnb? And I know Cher has some tidbits on this as well, but what would you say would be the guidance that you would give somebody who's trying to break into this Airbnb world?
My first advice would be to look at the market, see who's around you, see how much they're charging, and also see what the property looks like. Once you figure out who's around you, then just trying to set it up. So making sure it has towels, seasonings, furniture that people would actually want to use. Because anybody can go and start at Airbnb, but it's the quality in which you start out impacts the longevity of the Airbnb. Because guests are brutal. They have the right to review you, and Airbnb doesn't have a star standard, but your people are attracted based on the stars. So you need to have something that's appealing. So that would be my advice. Make the house look nice and dedicate enough time to talk to the guests, no matter what time of day it is.
Basically, you need to be a super host.
Yes, but that takes a minimum of 3 months to achieve the super host for the Airbnb platform. All platforms have a version of it. And your cancellation rate has to be less than 1. And you have to maintain 4.8 stars and have at least 10 confirmed reservations within 3 months.
Wow. How long have you been doing Airbnb?
Since 2019.
Wow. Okay. And how many properties do you have for Airbnb?
Right now we have 4 properties for Airbnb.
Yeah. Awesome. Are they all in this area, or they're in other areas?
They are all in Washington, D.C.
Okay, cool.
So we have, our smallest is a 1-bed, 1-bath, and our largest is a 5-bedroom, 4-bath.
Excellent.
In Southeast.
Yeah, in Southeast, Northeast. Yeah.
Oh, like $800 a night.
and it gets rented.
So one of the things, this is a secret that I'm willing to share, is we use dynamic pricing. So there's systems out there that will help fluctuate your pricing based on the demand.
Okay.
So you set a minimum, which is, as it says, a base price is what's the absolute lowest you'll take. And then you can set a cap, which we never do. Because who wants to cap your max potential?
Exactly.
And so it just fluctuates. So the house that Cher is referring to, it varies from $500 to $1,200 a night. Just
wow.
That's a big gap. Yeah.
Depending on what's going on in the city.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
So Cher, I know you've dabbled in this business on your own as well. What would you say would be some guidance? I know we've gotten some feedback from Rhianna, but what would you say would be some good guidance for people who are trying to break into this industry?
Well, I think they have to start at, the acquisition. So if you've already owned the property, then I think it's pretty easy to get it Airbnb ready and make sure, the house is fully stocked. And I completely agree with Rihanna. Like if you're gonna put everything IKEA in there and have everything very basic and things that break easily and aren't as beautiful, then you're not going to get top dollar for your nightly rentals, or your nightly rate rather. But if you're going to spend the money, and that doesn't mean you have to go to Neiman's to get bedding, but just quality bedding, quality decor, and thinking about just everything from glassware to, a washer dryer, and just having things readily accessible and very easy to make your stay, a nice stay, just like if you're staying at a hotel, like you want it to be comparable. Um, I think if you're willing to invest the money up front, and then of course you're going to be making a profit, so you'll have the profit to maintain a certain aesthetic and look, then you'll be a super host. You have the right management in place, you have the right decor in place, you're responsive, all of that. But I think a lot of times when you don't have the property and you're out there looking for a property, and a lot of people think I can just buy a property anywhere and make it into an Airbnb. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like people are looking, yes, they want to be in the city, but if you are in one area, you're not going to be able to charge the same nightly rate as you are in another area. So you really need to do a complete market analysis on what your nightly rates are going to look like. And then in addition to that, what number of days on a monthly basis are you renting? So what's your occupancy rate? If you're at 30% in one area, but 80% in another area, well, maybe at the 30% occupancy rate, you are making more money on a nightly rate, but it's only a 30% occupancy rate. But in the other area, you have a lower nightly rate, but you're at an 80% occupancy area. So you want to look at all of those factors when you're looking at acquiring a property, because overall, long term, you want to make sure that you are profiting as much as you can possibly profit. Like that's the goal of an income producing property. And I don't think everyone necessarily thinks about that when they're actually actively looking for, income producing properties. They're just like, a lot of people are just like, let me just get a property, make it into an Airbnb.
Right.
And there's more to it than that. You have to do a full analysis of it. And the reality is a lot of people think they can manage these properties by themselves. And I'm here to tell you that's a terrible idea.
I totally agree, Cher.
I mean, I started out with my first, look, I was user number 3 on Airbnb, and I started hosting immediately, and this had to be in 2015? I started hosting, yeah. And I did my basement, studio apartment right off of H Street. And it was very lucrative. I mean, from a little studio basement apartment, I was probably netting about $3,000 a month. Whereas when I did a regular market rate rental, I was renting it for $1,400 a month. So already I was making an additional $1,600 a month, which was amazing. However, my sanity was at all times. I mean, I had people complaining about the dumbest things. I mean, so one lady gave me what was it, 2-star review because I had a Keurig instead of a regular coffee maker in the unit. And she was highly insulted that I did not have a regular coffee maker because real coffee drinkers do not drink Keurig
Man, real coffee drinkers are at Starbucks.
Exactly. Bingo.
You
That
growing
is
up, daggone
crazy. So that messes up from her giving that bad review, it messes up something.
Well, it does, the algorithm, because now, I mean, I had before her, and let's say she was stay number 20, before her, I had all 4 to 5 star reviews. So now that takes me down a notch, so all you need is a few, complaining people, and there may be totally unwarranted complaints because it's not like she said the place was dirty. The place was beautiful, like she had a lot of complimentary things to say about the place, but the coffee just took her out of here. Like,
yeah, that's a preference. That's not really like a.
There's no parameters on that with Airbnb, right? Like I mean, she can just give whatever star she wants to give, and you don't have any control of it. It's not like you're giving stars based on coffee makers, you're giving stars based on.
So this might not matter, but let me ask you, did your description say coffee maker? Like, you know how we do in real estate, when we say certain things, we take a pic, it's in the photos. You know what I'm saying? Like, did she just randomly select a property and hope that it had a coffee maker? I mean, literally, I'm seeing Keurigs in hotels now. So
the amenities were listed. I mean, all the amenities were listed. So, I mean, she knew exactly what she was getting. Did she read it? Maybe she didn't read it. Was there pictures of the kitchen? Yeah, she could have seen a Keurig, machine on the kitchen. But that's just an example of the insanity that you have to deal with when you're dealing with people, because I mean, that's the least of my worries. Like, I had people in there that decided that they were going to not check out. My very first day was like an absolute nightmare. Like, these people came in, they put up a Christmas tree in my studio. Okay.
What?
A whole Christmas tree. And I was just dating my husband at the time. And he's like anti everything new, by the way. So when I told him I was Airbnb-ing, we must have been dating like a couple of months. And he was like, I think this is a terrible idea. You're a single woman, living here by yourself with your son, like you're just going to let random people in your basement. You don't know them. And I'm like, it's fine. He's like, I'm spending the night for the first night. I was like, you just want to spend the night. Whatever. So they signed up to stay for 2 weeks. So of course I'm super excited. I have my first guest staying for 2 weeks. This is awesome. Well, it's 2 days before Christmas. They're supposed to check out at 11. They don't check out.
Oh God.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, babe, you're going to have to go down there because, you're a big guy. You got to scare the boyfriend. Like, just knock on the door. He knocks on the door and they're like, yeah, we don't have anywhere to go. And he's like, I'm sorry about it, but that's not our problem. Like, you got to get out of here. We have another guest, because we had another guest checking in at 3:00. So they're like, well, we don't know where to go. He's like, well, if you're not out of here in an hour, we're going to have to call the police. While he was there, he saw a whole Christmas tree set up in there and a box with 5,000 boxes of Oreos in there, by the way. I don't know why, but there's a lot going on in this situation. They finally left, okay, and parked their car at the end of the alley and decide they're going to sleep in the car since they had to leave the Airbnb. Now, I'm not saying this to scare the audience. Like, stuff happens, but you have to be mentally prepared to deal with all of these things. Yeah. And if you have a property manager that's like the intermediary, it certainly helps a whole lot versus you being the person doing it yourself. Yeah. Because I also started doing property management for, exactly what Rhianna was doing. And at the peak, I had 10 properties at one time. And when I tell you I had no life, I absolutely had no life. I don't know how I had 2 children, a man, and I was like running a team and managing 10 Airbnbs at the same time. It was a complete insanity. However, the management piece was just so much. It's like you're not thinking about, you have multiple accounts. You're thinking about, you have to respond back because you're graded or rated on your response rate, like she said. You know, cancellations, you know, something goes wrong, the previous person burnt down the, you know, linen, you have to change it out, you know, and then even the smaller, the scheduling piece of like, you have checkout at 11, but then at 3:00, you have somebody new checking in. You have to have a cleaning crew in place that is going to be able to manage all of that, you know, and make sure everything is ready to go. So it's just a lot. And that's why you do want to consider having a property management company to offset. And a lot of, you know, like just all of it for you. And a lot of people think like, well, I don't want to give 20 to 30% of my earnings away. It's a lot. It is a lot. However, you're probably still making more than you're making if you just did a market rate rental. And if you're not, then don't Airbnb or don't do a short-term rental because it won't make sense. But that's my take on it.
You've gone through a lot with
With Airbnb.
You're usually always laughing at the stories that you tell us.
It was a lot. It was a lot. In hindsight, I'm like, who let me do that?
Well, I have a question. Airbnb, short-term rental. Which one, Rhianna? What do you think? Or both? You just, you know, you like doing both.
So I count short-term rental and Airbnb the same.
Okay, right.
You guys can share, you can say differently if you think, but
no, I agree.
I think short-term rental is the way to go if you're invested and fully invested. If you're not sure, but you want a little bit more than a long term, then I would do like a midterm, so more than 30 days, but less than 6 months. Okay. And that would be more like your traveling nurses and things like that, where you have less people coming in and out, but you can still charge more because it's fully furnished. Okay. And you're only doing a cleaning maybe once every month or 2 or 3 months, things like that. It still requires you to kind of make sure it's always booked. But I'm a short-term lover when things are good. This week we had some interesting things. So we had our first case of we had someone checking out at 10 and someone checking in at 3, and the guests were missing.
Which one? The coming in or going out?
So the ones that were going out were just not there. Like we saw the food on the table, we saw the suitcases. So I highly suggest everyone put at least external facing security cameras on your property so you can see who's coming in and who's coming out. It is a violation to have the cameras inside the home. And if you do, you can mention it, but it can only be in common areas because some of your more luxury homes will have like fine art and things like that. So we saw the family leave in the car and we just never saw them come back. And so
that's scary.
I was like, okay, well, you know, Corey, take video of everything. I'm going to call Airbnb. Like, do they have emergency contacts? Like, what happens?
But they left their suitcase.
They left everything. It looked like they were just going out to grab something, and then they just never came back.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. And so Airbnb was like, well, there's no emergency contact. I said, well, I need the person's first and last name. I went into straight healthcare mode, calling the hospitals. And I was like, we have to pack up their stuff. We have to put it somewhere. Long story short, the family's car broke down 2 days prior, and they just decided to stay in Virginia. And the lady wasn't answering the phone. And then she thought checkout was like 2 hours later and just strolled in. And I was like, you know, we've been blowing you up for 2 hours.
Lord, y'all, these stories.
Wow. I mean, you were ready to call the authorities. Like,
you were right.
I mean, if someone leaves your house and then they with their little kids and they don't come back for 2 days, I would think the worst.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what happens in that kind of scenario since like do they have to pay an additional fee, like for an extra day, or since checkout was late, or not necessarily?
In that case, we did not charge a late checkout fee. We did just pack up their stuff, and we had moved it, and we were actually going to just put it in a secure space in the home, but they came back. But we still had the cleaning staff come clean it to get ready, because we were not going to try to move the next guest because of it. The house wasn't damaged.
Okay.
But we do have a unauthorized and authorized late checkout policy. That way, usually people are more likely to check out if they know there's a fee.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be very helpful on getting things moving.
For your short-term leases, are they? Is it a place that you live maybe upstairs, or are all of the places somewhere separate?
So at first I used to do the basement, but I no longer live in that home. So
Okay.
all of them are entire properties.
Okay.
And they all get booked through the booking website, or they book directly through our website, which is stayathilltop.com.
Okay.
We only do leases if it's over 30 days for the traveling nurses and things like that, or for our long-term tenants.
Okay. And does each of them have access to, the washing machine and dryer, or they need to have other, access? They need to, find that themselves?
No, so all of our guests have access to a washer and dryer.
Mm-hmm.
When you're establishing your Airbnb, please think about the capacity of your washer and dryer when trying to clean the house quickly. Because if you have a compact and you're trying to put like a duvet or a comforter or a whole bunch of towels, like it's going to add to the cleaning time. Wow. Yeah, but they get everything. We put seasoning in there, pots, pans, fire pit, arcade games, you name it. Yeah.
I knew there was, always short term, but I use, when you think of the leases, you always think of long-term leases. So, the short-term leases is really a good way to go also.
Yeah, and they Airbnb, Vrbo, they give you insurance for claims, but I always suggest people update their home insurance for at least for a minimum to cover things as well, because things will get damaged.
Definitely. And for the short-term leases, do they leave feedback? Do they have that, or no?
Just like for the Airbnb and Vrbo listings, or the midterm?
No, the midterm. Do they have to? Can they leave feedback on like a website or anything like that too?
If they book through one of our platforms, we do have one home that's a midterm. They can leave feedback, but if we do a lease, no. Okay. I mean, I just talked to them, but we don't post that feedback on our website. It's just whatever's on the other platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rhianna, what are some key things that you would say for people who are thinking about, short-term rentals, especially in this market? What are some key things they can do to prepare themselves, for acquiring an Airbnb or a VRBO and getting all set up?
Once you find it, I will say that the DC market specifically is saturated with basement units. So trying to set yourself apart once you get it. And then also being aware that people are going to rent your house. So having the mindset to disconnect, because some people, they take it personal because it's their personal space. That's my number one advice. Just know it's stuff and it can be replaced. And then take cleanliness, make it a priority. Definitely. If you cannot clean to a hotel standard, do not set yourself up for failure when setting up your Airbnb. The cleaning staff has the biggest effect on your ratings. So if you hire someone, make sure you do follow up behind them. And then, of course, aesthetic, focusing on making it stand out. Those would be the things that would be my advice for them.
Would you say that you see like a certain like ROI, like an average ROI on Airbnb rentals or short-term rentals?
I was gonna ask that next.
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely a minimum of 2 times the rent if you do a long term. Our properties are mostly in Southeast, so the downfall on our properties is the location in regards to like you can't walk to the National Mall, but we're still getting double what the long term would be. For the more premier houses, you're definitely looking at triple your mortgage. And that's when it's booked at least 70%. So I think,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say another mistake I see a lot is people make the rate too high, which Cher talked about earlier. So they're not booked that much. Whereas they're not looking at the long-term goal. Some people are underbidding and some people are like way too high for what they're on.
No, I was gonna say, in the last couple of years, I have seen that market like take off tremendously. Especially, I was looking at some people that I know that, ramped up their business or their business increased during the pandemic. What would you all say? And I'd like to hear from everybody. What would you all say would be the reason that short-term rentals and Airbnbs like took off during the pandemic?
I think for me, and this is me wearing 2 hats as healthcare and in real estate. I think with COVID shutting down hotels, tourism, things like that, and having all these barriers in place and rules by the CDC, short-term rentals were a way to get away from whatever space you were locked in on Zoom and still have some sort of vacation and some sort of human interaction while still being within the CDC guidelines. Because I had people coming down from New York just to work in a different space. It wasn't that they were doing anything. They just needed a change of scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think from the safety perspective, like I would feel more comfortable staying at a smaller space, like versus being in a hotel where there's hundreds of people in and out. Yeah, there was someone staying there before I checked in, but I'm thinking and hoping that the cleaning crew did their job and purposely, like they disinfected the right way and all of that. So I don't have to worry about being in a hotel lobby and dealing with just so many people. I think that had to play a part as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that maybe I'm the opposite on for Airbnbs is I feel that I've stayed in one before and it was not clean at all. I think that the furniture was dated. It was a horrible experience, and I never did it again.
You were jaded.
You had a bad experience, and it's tough if you have a bad first experience.
Right?
You're like, I don't want to go back. Yeah.
Were you hesitant before you even went?
I was already hesitant, and we stayed in LA for Aaron's 16th birthday.
I remember that.
And the pictures online was just amazing.
So they catfished you?
Yeah, it was horrible. I would say, it wasn't like it was nasty. I'm not going to say it was nasty, but I was just expecting the furniture to look better, the carpet to look a certain way. And it was the total opposite, so it messed me up. I've never done it since. I haven't done it since then.
And you really do you feel like you really read the reviews before you stayed there? Or
I think I'm more so looking at the pictures than the reviews.
Yeah, you were doing real estate, Arnita.
Yeah, I looked at the pictures more than the reviews. I will say that.
Yeah, because I started staying at Airbnbs before they were Airbnbs. Like when back in the day when VRBO was the only outlet, and you probably had to do a minimum stay of a week at VRBO back in the day. But I remember I went to Ibiza, Spain, and rented a house, and I read through those comments nonstop because I saw like other comments where people are like, "Don't believe the pictures. The pictures like 1977. You know, like the way this place looks right now does not look anything like it does in real life." So I really paid attention to the like what people were saying because that does make a difference. I mean, I've stayed at enough Airbnbs now to know that you have got to see those comments.
Yeah.
Yes, people will be so honest.
Mm-hmm.
So honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that I wanted to ask about. So even going in for the investment aspect, I mean, I think because I'm more intrigued in that definitely because I want my Airbnb to be amazing. But Cher has like scared me a lot too.
Yeah. Because I was looking into it too, but I'm like, wait a minute, let me pump my brakes a little bit.
But Cher said right in the beginning, you better get somebody to handle it. Don't do it.
It's true, but that makes it a lot less scary because if you know that you have a reputable company handling it for you and someone you can trust, then it's kind of like you're just collecting your check every month.
Yeah.
You know? So I wouldn't be afraid for that if you have a company ready to go. I think it's when you're just kind of diving in there and either taking it on yourself, you know, or having a company maybe that you don't know that well, then that could be scary.
Definitely. So I get this question all the time. I mean, even if it's regarding Airbnb or short-term rentals, is it the perfect time to invest in those things right now because of the prices of the market? What do y'all think?
I think there's always something out there when you really want it.
Okay.
And I think it's understanding exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like, oh, I want an investment property where I sleep in the basement and I'm renting out the top, then you can find it. And it's also understanding your budget and understanding that your budget has to furnish the place.
And it doesn't have to be in the same area that you live.
No. So that's why the market analysis and working with the knowledgeable realtor is very important.
Because, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because a realtor, there's two different types of realtors. There's ones that just want the money, and then there's ones that are actually listening to their clients.
Okay, period.
And so your realtor should be able to within your price range tell you what areas are great. Definitely. You can do a market analysis on your end to try to help guide that conversation, but that is the expertise of the realtor.
Perfect.
My expertise is just making it look nice and getting people a check.
Yeah. Do you think that one could actually execute this process without a realtor, or do you think that's possible?
In regards to the purchasing the home or just setting it up?
Well, I think both.
I think when it comes to purchasing a home, if you're bold enough to do it without a realtor, go right on ahead. Because I think in DC, the realtor has to also do the contracts and things like that. But if you have that, I commend you. That will save you some money. I think setting it up is a lot easier than people think. It's just setting up to the point to get the profit that you want that makes it challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I would say if you were going to give someone a ballpark of getting your house, let's say a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom row home with a basement, to get, and assuming that it was a blank slate, everything painted, beautiful finishes, all of that. But in terms of investing money for furniture, TVs, everything, you're probably looking at a minimum of $6,000 to do a house that size. So if you think you're going to acquire, a property and then have a $2,000 budget to furnish it, it ain't happening.
No.
Because and beds, you got to get the beds.
Yeah, because you're not going to get the bed from like some little shop off at Beach Street for $9.99 that's having some mattress sale. Like, not that kind of bed.
Right.
Because it matters. Like, people will comment on their sleeping experiences. Like, did you have a pillow top? Did you have this? And yes, you have to invest in like bed bug covers and covers for your pillowcases and all, and like that stuff adds up. I mean, bed bug covers aren't cheap. You probably have to spend about $50, for that. Pillowcase covers. I mean, it's like the minor things that the average person doesn't think about. But if you want to maintain long term, all of these items, you're going to have to invest in it from the start. So you really have to have a realistic idea of what that overall budget is going to be. And then even when you're thinking about creating your monthly budget, and you can chime in, Rhianna, on this, like, if you're making $10,000 a month, okay, and let's say 20% of that is going to your property manager, now you're out to $8,000 a month. And who knows what your mortgage is? Let's say your mortgage is $3,000. So now you're left with $5,000 a month. Well, 5,000 of those dollars, yes, that's profit, but you have to probably take about 10% of that $5,000 and use that towards supplies, maintenance, and whatever else. So, you just have to look at the total picture and not think, okay, $10,000 a month, that's all mine. No, that's not all yours. Like, it goes into different things. And long term, you're still probably profiting more than a regular market rate rental, but you want to make sure you have the investment saved up upfront, and that you're on an ongoing basis saving some of that money towards maintenance and upkeep.
Yeah, and I would add about 10 to 15% for cleaning. And then when you're also ordering at least double all the sheets, all the towels, all of that.
Okay.
So that's where the hidden costs really add up. And then if we're going on the same scenario, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, you're putting a bed in every bedroom, if not a bunk bed or 2 twin beds. Then depending on the layout, having a sofa sleeper. So you're trying to also maximize how many people can comfortably sleep in the home. So you have to think of considering the living room as a potential bedroom, or any office or den space as well. Because a 3-bedroom, 2-bath could at least sleep 8 minimum.
Yeah.
Wow. Excellent.
Well, ladies, this episode was very informational, and we want to thank you, Rhianna, for joining this week, and we appreciate your contribution, because we get a lot of questions from customers and clients who inquire about short-term and Airbnb, and I think that this episode really shed a lot of light on expenses, what to invest, and just the process as a whole. So we want to thank you very much.
Definitely. I really got a lot.
Wonderful. So share your social media one more time for folks, and how they can contact you, just in case they want to reach out to you.
So we just have a website. We're not on social media yet, since we're a 2-person company. But our website is staywithhilltop.com. You'll get myself, and we're very quick with responses. This year we'll get a social media, so bear with us.
We'll be sending all the insane clients to you.
Definitely.
Our clients aren't insane, but we can't vouch for who's staying at their properties. Just letting you know.
Exactly.
We'll be prepared.
Great. So this wraps up our episode this week on Queens of the DMV. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts every Thursday, airing at 5 p.m. We want to say goodbye for now. not for forever. I'm here with my co-host that will be signing out. Cher Castillo.
Bye. See you next time.
Arnita Greene.
Hello.
And our guest, Rhianna Green. Until next time, Queens of the DMV. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Rhianna. You are excellent.